Very good evening, everyone. Are we good to start? Okay.
Harshali ma'am, I'm making you the host.
Okay. Yeah. So we can start. Very good evening and welcome from SNCC Rehab Foundation. Nice to see you all. I'll just brief about SNCC. We are based in Nagpur. I am Harshali Kharche. I am the director and the founder of SNCC Rehab Foundation. Our here is SNCC Special Needs Integration Center, and our motto is to create awareness in various disabilities, sensitize the society about the inclusion, acceptance, and various interventions. Also, we want to establish the support parents in various areas like advocacy, emotional mental health, children's development and residential part, and also in financial sector.
But there's no
Parents, please mute yourself. Our motto is also to sensitize government personnel and eminent personality of the society faced by special needs children. Okay. Okay. Here our motto by doing various series of webinar is to educate the parents and develop their perspective towards the right kind of directions and treatments, interventions. Also, we are coming up in Nagpur with a project which will have all the facility under one roof. So today we are going to take a most awaited topic to play in development. Like to play is to grow and a development approach of playing. So for that we have beloved Miss Nishtha Buddhiraja with us. She is a psychologist and adult psychotherapist. She is a certified play and art therapist specializing in children with special needs. She is passionate about and trained neurodevelopment disorder in India and UK. She is the co-founder of Samarthya Child Development Center and Psychological Services. So I welcome Nishtha for this session and thank you so much for doing this. Nishtha, over to you.
Thank you, Harshali ma'am, for a wonderful introduction. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you all for taking your time off from your days and in the middle of the week. I hope all of us are wide and awake, and this was something that was requested in the last webinar that we had and the webinar before that. And I cannot stress enough how important play is in a child's development. And with the different modalities that have come about, ABA and behavior therapy, play plays a very important role in executing the methodology, and it sort of gives the child the free space to be able to solve their own problems themselves. I will be taking questions. I will be taking them at the end, and please bear with me in times of maybe when it's you don't understand something, so put that in the chat box and we'll take that towards the end. And if you all have a pen and a paper with you, you can just note down all of your questions and we'll take them at the end. All right, we'll start. Okay, I hope everyone's able to see my screen.
Yes.
So today's topic is to play is to grow, a developmental approach to playing. So what is play? That's one of the first things that we need to get very straight. What is play? It is a fun way in which a child interacts with the environment to learn about it and develop. So it's a very fun and an easy going way. So a child would, just this is the remote of the AC, start fidgeting here, maybe put this on their head. So it's just a fun way in which the child would interact with the environment, take different objects, play with them, fidget with them, throw them around, push them around, and learn about things. A very intriguing example, and it never ceases to amaze me, is when children discover gravity. When they realize that everything that they throw falls to the ground, and it falls to the ground with different speeds. So when children discover gravity, what they do is they take a bunch of different objects. So they would maybe take a pencil or a pen, they would take a paper, and they would take a rock. And they would probably throw it from a certain height. It could be their balcony, it could be a table, it could be the bed, or maybe just, standing and putting their hands up and just throwing it from a height like this. The first time the child does such experimentation, the child is really happy, and they discover things, and they come to you and they show you that, listen mom, listen dad, this is what I've discovered. When I throw this, when I throw a feather, it goes down like this, whereas when I throw maybe a marble or maybe my toy, it goes straight down. And that sort of brings the child to the awareness that everything falls on the ground. So taking this example in mind, let's see how the following developmental areas come into picture. So play focuses on the natural progression in physical development. So as and when the child will develop physically, their play will change. A child who is crawling on the floor, their play would be, just moving things around like this. When the child starts to walk, maybe they push a certain object. If you give them a blanket, they would probably be carrying it around, pulling it on the floor. That's play. That's the physical development bit of it. Cognitive development, the same example of discovering gravity, how different objects fall with different speeds. That's how a child would, develop, and they would make sense of the world. Then comes imaginative development, how they imagine different things. So you would have seen neurotypical children and certain neuroatypical children also, they have an imagination. So they play teacher. They have a favorite teacher in mind, and they would always want to, be that teacher, and other children becoming the students, and they would teach them with blackboard. Imaginative play also consists of children putting on lipstick and just behaving like their mothers, wrapping a dupatta around like a sari, and then modeling, doing a ramp walk or a catwalk. That's play. That's imaginative development aspect of play. Then there would be creative development, where they would like to play around with colors and different things to create something. So you would find kids playing with blocks and creating masterpieces out of blocks and Lego. Then there is emotional development, where you would find a child holding a doll or maybe holding a car after the toy has bumped into the wall, and just, coddling and soothing the doll. Oh, it's okay, nothing happened. And then there is social development. So in social development, children would learn how to play together, interactively or associatively, cooperatively, with different rules and regulations. And the games that they would play would give them, again, a sense of mastery of the world. So the entire thing with play is it helps the child gain mastery of their social world. Moving on. Why is playing important? Children explore, they understand, they explore the environment around, they understand how things work, how objects work. They learn better than from instruction. So for example, if I give the child an instruction, do this, they would probably execute it, but what would they learn? They would just learn that I need to execute Nishtha ma'am's instruction. Whereas if I just tell them, listen, this is an object, you play with it however you want. And the child maybe starts fiddling with the cells in the battery operated toy and realizes that, you know, there are springs associated with the cell that I can, you know, with my finger, they would make a sound. I can vibrate it with my finger and they would make a sound. So something like this. So this is the spring in the remote here, and they would play with this like this and it would make a sound like that. So then they would also learn coping skills. So skills like self-regulation, you can use different toys, different objects to teach children that. Do deep breathing with toys and teach self-regulation. They learn compassion. You might have seen a lot of parents, you know, teaching compassion using toys. And I say this from personal example. Um, so they would bring my toy doll in, and they would be like, okay, when this toy falls to the ground, does this toy cry? And I'm not saying that crying is a bad thing. It's obviously a healthy release of emotions. But back when I was a toddler, how else would you make the child understand that falling and getting hurt is part of life? So that compassion towards others and your own self. Then self-confidence, when a child is playing and they show you that this is what I've done, this is how I'm playing, and you appreciate that, that teaches them self-confidence. Then motivation. So playing brings about a lot of motivation, and I say this from personal, my personal life is I would always look forward to the 6 to 7 playing time where I could you know, skip with my friends, play crocodile, or hide and seek, or you know, seven stones. So it would provide a motivation that I have to finish my homework before 6 so that I can happily and easily play from 6 to 7. If I don't finish my homework by 6, I would only get to play from 6 to 6:30. 6:30, I would have to come back and finish my homework. Now, a very important thing here to note is playing does not always involve toys. You would have seen children going in the kitchen, taking out a bowl and a spoon, and they'll start banging, tuck, 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 tuck. So that's playing for them. And it doesn't involve toys. It involves an everyday object that they use. So moving on, what is the importance of play therapy? Why do we need it? We need it to work on emotional, behavioral, and communication issues. This is one of the modalities, one of the methods that we can use. And we can use this in neurotypical and special needs children. We can also use it with geriatric patients. So geriatric patients are patients that are 60 plus. And I shared this in my emotional regulation webinar where for 2-3 sessions with a patient who had depression and a traumatic brain injury, I think it was 65 plus. We were just playing tic-tac-toe, noughts and crosses for 2-3 sessions, and that's when they started opening up that, you know, nobody has sat with me and spent so much time, and I really like coming to you, and I think now I would be comfortable in talking to you. So play sort of helped there. It supports social interaction. So in a group, kids play, they become friends, they learn from each other. It motivates the child to communicate. So it is one of those unspoken things that, you know, in play, when you're playing cooperatively using different rules and regulations, you learn how to communicate. Then there is development of understanding, internal and external. By that we mean that they try to understand what is happening inside their bodies, in their minds, in their hearts, and what's happening outside. So, for example, a child is maybe unwell and they really want to go out and play with their friends, but they're so unwell that they find it extremely difficult. So, they try and communicate with their parents that I really want to go out and I'm not well. And the parents would be supportive. Okay, child, you're not well, so why don't we do something? We'll play an indoor game. We'll call your friends to the house and we'll play something indoor, maybe cards, or maybe tic-tac-toe, or maybe some kind of a paper game, paper and a pen game, sorry. So, and then it is to achieve integration between growth and development. And by that, I mean growth is something that we would consider very physical, very organic. Development is an overall growth in different domains. Growth would be just in one domain. It could be physical growth, cognitive growth, but development is a holistic overall thing. So an achievement between an integration between overall growth physically and development mentally, emotionally, physically as well, socially, cognitively, all that. Moving on, play and play therapy. And here I want to emphasize that um, if you can understand the difference between play and play therapy, it is going to be very important to be able to understand that whether I'm playing with my child or I'm doing play therapy with my child. I will be very honest with you, in a 45-minute to 1 hour session, 80% of the time I'm playing with the child. There is no therapy happening. Therapy happens in the 20% of the time. And this is because I want the child to be able to, in a fun way, explore the world, integrate the world, and give the child the message that I am here for you, I am supportive of you, I want you to explore the world and figure things out by yourself. I am promoting independence. If the child brings 20 toys to me to play with, I make sure in that session I play with 20 toys with the child the way the child wants to. And the therapy bit is the 20 or the 30%, in the play session. So play is an activity that is undertaken for enjoyment or amusement, and it has no other objective. It enables the child to look and feel beyond their difficulties. It lowers their inhibitions and enables them to feel more in sync with the social world. I also work for a government organization. It's the legal department. And a lot of children that I get, that I have to do therapy and counseling with, are little kids who have been physically and sexually abused. With them, and I was discussing this with my colleagues just today, that it becomes really easy if you have certain play material with you. So in my office at work, I have those finger puppets that go on your finger easily. And then I have colors, I have sheets, and I have pencils. I also have watercolors, not just the crayons. And using those finger puppets, I tend to, say that not everybody is as, we cannot feel safe with everybody. Not everybody is as comfortable with each other. And it's all right, and it's not your fault. And the message that I'm giving the child using play here is that I am there for you. I'm only playing with the child to give the child a message. And that's it. There is no hidden agenda. So that will come under play and not play therapy. So play therapy, it is a facilitating process between the child and the therapist that enables the child to explore with their agenda in mind and work on their own distress. So it's a facilitating two-way process. I learn from the child learns from me. And they explore the world. They have their own agenda that, I might want to learn to communicate. I maybe want to just, make some noise and try and annoy my therapist. Or sometimes they just want comfort and calm. So they have their own agenda, and we need to sort of facilitate them to be able to express their own agenda and work on their issues and become more independent. That's the whole perspective and point of play therapy. We are facilitating the child and making them more independent. Foundation principles in play therapy, please have this in your mind when you start play therapy with your child, or even if you ask another behavior therapist to do play therapy with your child. It is extremely important. So have faith and belief in your child's natural ability. The day we start doubting a child's natural ability, we ourselves unknowingly contribute to the child's distress. And we wouldn't want that, especially when we're doing something as pure as playing with the child or doing play therapy with the child. Hold the child in positive regard, irrespective of whatever the child did. It could be a child who has committed a crime unknowingly. Still give the child that respect, hold them in the positive regard that there is a huge possibility the child was not aware of what they did. They maybe didn't even understand uh, the consequences of what they were doing. Focus on emotional well-being of the child. So like I said, the message that I want to give through my finger puppets at work is, when I'm dealing with a child who's been sexually, physically, or emotionally abused, is trying to give them a message that I support you no matter what. I am here for you no matter what. Accept the child as who they are and not as who you want them to be. And as parents, as the therapist, I cannot stress this enough. Accept the child as who they are. And this is something that I've been eagerly and upcomingly advocating, that try and understand your child's strengths and limitations, and accept the fact that even though you and your child can work relentlessly towards making those limitations into a strength, but there may be some room there that would, or some obstacle there that would prevent your limitation from becoming a strength. And it's all right. It's okay. Not all of us need to be CEOs of big companies. We can be people who are struggling in our lives but still surviving with a smile on our face, waking up every day in the morning, looking forward to our days, even though they might look like very insignificant lives and very insignificant days to outer world. And that's fine. Not everybody is built for that rat race, and that rat race at the end of the day will give you premature graying, balding head, cholesterol issues, lifestyle problems, divorces, and things like that. So maybe that's a good thing that our children are not in that race. Maybe they're slightly well emotionally adjusted. Okay, moving on. So we have different stages of play, and there are different types of play. And in this picture, I hope you're able to see. First is unoccupied play. So unoccupied play is when the child is occupied in their own world, gazing out of the window, looking at things, touching things, and not really concerned with what's happening in the world. So solitary play is when the child is engrossed with the object that is in front of them, and there is no other individual involved. From solitary play going to onlooker play, this is where socialization begins. So onlooker play is when the child is looking at the other children. So this is around the time when they start going to a play school, or maybe when they start going to the park, when they start interacting with other children, when they find that older children and other children are playing and they're just watching them play. And this is a beautiful observation, um, that I have had, a beautiful experience, is kids can watch other kids play, mesmerized by whatever they're doing for hours at a stretch. And it's such a beautiful thing to see when the child is trying to make sense of the game, trying to make sense of the people around, and just um, building up that courage to approach them and ask them, can I play too? Then there is parallel play, where kids play with their own toys, do their own play activities parallelly with another person. Then there is associative play, where two kids play together with similar goals in mind. That, listen, we'll play with blocks. Let's see who builds a building faster. And then there are social play. So social play is your cooperative play, where there are certain rules and regulations associated with games. So here you would have pre-adolescent play, so playing a game of football, cricket, chess, checkers, carom board, so things like that. All right, moving on. Uses of play therapy. So why do we use it? I mean, we could just get our children to play with us and think we're doing play therapy, but that's not really the case. So one of the major uses is that we are working on cognitive ability of a child. We are helping them make sense of the world, comprehend the world. We are improving motor skills. So where every time a child grabs something, whether it's like this, whether it's like this, whether it's like this, or whether it's like this or like this, the child's motor skills improve, fine motor and gross motor. The third one is they develop language and communication. Um, it takes language and communication for a child to be able to say that this is the toy that I want to play. Even when they may not be able to use their own words, it's still communication. They might just gesture along. Then improve social skills. There is group play when they're playing in a group, maybe working and playing in teams. um, Interactions with one another, saying hi, hello, the greeting bit, saying bye, understanding that now the sun is setting, it's getting dark, we all need to go home. And then helping in reducing distress and difficulty that a child may be facing. So, and this is something that has been my experience working with the legal department. A lot of times kids express a lot of distress while playing. Uh, so while playing, they would hit the doll, and I would ask them, "Why did you hit the doll?" And they'd be like, "Moms to yahi karti hai. This is what mummies do. Mummies hit children." And this sort of gives me an insight as to maybe the child is watching someone getting hit, or maybe they are themselves getting hit. And I would, in the next session, if I have some time in that session, I would bring the kids, the parents in, and ask them one on one if there's any violent role model in the child's life. And if the parents confess to being that violent role model themselves, it's something that we again target in our parental coaching sessions or parent management training sessions, that um, this is where you can change. And what is it that gets you angry so fast? Are your expectations from your child very realistic, or is the child just being a soft target because you're frustrated in life? And then we would teach the parents coping skills, because that would directly affect the child's parenting. So it is extremely important that whenever you're playing with the child, you yourself don't let your distress come into the picture, because if that happens, you may not be able to identify the child's communication of distress in the session, or during play therapy. You might just be doing it for 15 or 20 minutes as parents, and that's completely acceptable. So, what do you keep in mind is join the child in their play without any changes. You mimic the child. You're the one who wants to play with the child. You're the one who's entering the child's world. So mimic the child, action for action. You do it for a few days, or for a few weeks, the child will bond with you. The second thing is be open and non-directive. The day a play therapist, or as parents, while you're playing with the child, you become directive, is when you start instructing the child what to do. And children can only learn so much from instruction. So when you're instructing, you're expecting obedience, and obedience will not foster any social skills, any emotional regulation, any stress management, or any coping skills. Obedience will just be met with either a response for rebellion, that I will not do this, or it will be met by compliance, that they will comply and obey to you and just be like, yeah, okay, so it was something that my parents asked me to do, so I'm doing. And then you start communicating with your child on the basis of gesture. Express your desire to play with a different object only after your child shows an interest in playing with you. Once they communicate that I'm interested in playing with you, that's when you can actually start play therapy. Before that, it's more rapport building with the child, and again, that is something that is sometimes we're able to achieve that as trained play therapists within minutes. Sometimes it takes 2 3 sessions as well, and that's okay. Let's all be patient. Every child is different. Okay, avoid saying, sorry, there's a typo there. Avoid saying trigger words like no and don't. Use neutral language. So just something as simple as come, let's sit here instead of sit here. Neutral language, and the tone and pitch needs to be considered. You set a limit for your and your child's safety, and by this I mean set the boundary of where you will be playing. So if you look at my cabin where I play with the kids, that's very different from where I do the parent coaching sessions. When I'm playing with the child, it's just a matted floor, and I have a few toys with me, or I ask the child to pick toys that's kept either in the almirah or it's kept in the other room where we mostly use, that space for storage. And the child brings with them 7, 8, 10, 12 toys, and I keep on reminding the child that listen, we can't come out before the session ends. So I'm setting a limit. The time limit, one session, 45 minutes. Now, second thing is you can choose as many number of toys as you want, but it'll be you who will have to come back and keep it where you took it out from. Third thing, we will not be coming out before the session ends to get fresh toys, get other toys. No. Also, limit setting, what it does usually is it is there for your own safety as a therapist, as the parents, and it's there for the child safety. So a lot of kids with special needs, they want to switch on and off the switch quite many times. They want to put their finger in the switchboard in the socket and they get shocked. um, and this is something that is a huge safety hazard. So we need to be very mindful of the fact that we're sitting on the floor and there are no switchboards around. If they are, we tend to cover it with a cardboard box, and just keep a cardboard box on it like that and tape it up to the sides. Then we use conditioning. We use verbal and visuals for transitions before changing any activity. This is done especially if the child is very rigid. So for children on the autism spectrum, we use this method. For children with certain sensory processing disorders, we use this method. Then we keep it short and sweet. We give more of free play. When I say we keep it short and sweet, we can't have like 6 7 hours of play therapy sessions happening in a day. No, the child will lose the essence of therapy associated with play. Then there is a delicate balance between mastery and challenge, and this is where we need to understand. If the child is becoming a master at playing with XYZ toys, you try and change it and make it into a little bit of a challenge for the child. Because unless you don't challenge the child, that independence, that self-confidence, that motivation, that zeal and desire will not come about. And that's exactly what we are focusing on. We are focusing on the child's overall cognitive, imaginative, social, and motor development as well. Sometimes even physical development through play. All right, moving on. The toys and material that you can use, ideally this is what's suggested, is that you incorporate all the senses while you're selecting toys and material to play with, and try to cater to the child's need. And when I say that you try to cater to the child's need, by that I mean if the child is somebody who really likes to touch a lot of things, they're tactile in nature, tactile seeking in nature. So we suggest that you make a texture book. The child can come, touch everything, feel things, feel denim, feel your skin, and that can be a material that you play with. Smell. So in the center we have a few uh, essence bottles. So the essence that goes in cakes and biscuits and ice creams, we have them in the clinic. So they have a really nice smell, and they have a really nice taste if they are put into whatever food material. So we use them sometimes, a cologne or a perfume that I'm wearing, the child gets irritated with it. Sometimes they really like it. So that can also become a material to play with within set limits, okay? Keeping health and other safety issues in mind. Then taste, it could be sweet, sour, whatever the child is comfortable with. Then sound, banging, scrunching, ringing. So sound, we normally have like a bowl, a katori, and a spoon that we use and bang with. Or maybe we would have different kinds of bells. I have this particular bell that I use, and it goes tong. So I use that to indicate to the child that the time for this particular play activity is now over and we will move on to the next one. Then there is size, so color, form, light, shininess, length. So we can use different materials to do that. So these all materials are something that you can use. So plastic, fabric, wood, metal. And then there are different kinds of fabric, different kinds of textures. Then there are sponges that you can play with, feathers that you can play with, different mat samples. You can get them from different matting and flooring places. Just ask them for a random sample of different textures and just be like, okay, I need to see what carpet I need to put down. So can you give me a swatch? They'll give you a swatch. You can also actually make this into a sensory wall. On the wall, just stick different things around and the child can touch, the child can roll in it, and it becomes a plaything for the child. And at the same time, it does therapy work for the child as well, for sensory integration. So the beginning, so this is the play therapy sessions, the beginning, what all you need to keep in mind. First is start with messy play with water, clay, dough, etc. with your child, and the why is something that I'll explain later on. You join them instead of telling them to not make a mess. Messes can be cleaned up. A child that has been traumatized after you scold them for being messy, the self confidence goes down. And then that's something that becomes really difficult to work with after a certain point. Then you make a verbal narrative to the child while playing and stick to one language. And here, what I'm trying to say is, if you're going to go and grab a teddy bear, tell them, now I'm going to go and get the teddy bear. We're going to play with the teddy bear next. And if you're saying that, okay, now we're going to be doing some watercolors. So you tell them that I'm going to go get some water, some paintbrush, and some colors, and now we're going to play with paints. So all of those narratives will have to come from you so that the child sees, understands, comprehends, and models your communication. You follow the child, you do not lead them. If the child is getting up, going to the other corner of the room, that's exactly what you do. Use animated expressions. In your face, just be like, oh, wow, this is what happened. Oh my God, yes. And this is what I normally do. I make like weird expressions. I'll do something like, oh my God, something like this happened. Oh. And when I do all of these things, the child gets their attention to my face. So it facilitates eye contact, it facilitates gestures, it facilitates a language of communication that is beyond words. Sometimes a child would just look at me with discomfort, and I would, in a session or maybe in a group therapy session or maybe with their parents, and I'd be like, he's getting a little uncomfortable. Maybe he wants to go to the washroom. And that's something that tends to really help the child have faith in us therapists. Then use one touch point only in the child and reinforce that. Um, This is a little technical concept, and I really want you to understand this right now. So, a touch point is one sensation that you will be working with at one given point in time. If you are wanting to only take the vision route, only show things to kids. See, this is what happens, this is what happens, this is what it looks like, or what is the color. So, like that. This often helps with autism and sensory processing disorders, where we only use one sensation to play around with. So it could either be sense of smell. So you smell, give them something to smell and just be like, oh, it smells bad, or oh, it smells really nice. Only one sensation, because children have difficulty, some children with special needs have difficulty coping with the sensory overload, and this might make them uncomfortable and go into a meltdown. So this is what we keep in mind. We don't force them to do things, um, in a way that's more suitable to us, that you're giving them sound, touch, vision, everything together, and the child becomes overwhelmed. And whenever the child gives you a response, when you engage only one touch point, reinforce that. Oh wow, that's very good, that's really nice, that's really good, really nice. All right, moving on. So the games that you can play, and I mentioned messy play activities, and I cannot stress this enough. This is your holy grail of play. If you can happily communicate that it is okay to make a mess while playing, but you'll be the one who'll have to clean it up, and that's something that you communicate consequently. The kid will be happy with you. The kid will be so supported by you and accepted by you. And this is a really amazing way to build rapport. And one of the things that I have done right at the beginning of my career is, I would ask the parents to bring an extra pair of clothing. And in summer, I would just take a spray bottle and I would spray different parts of the child. Um, and obviously, the AC would be switched off. Maybe sometimes even the fan would be switched off, because certain children fall sick really often and very easily. So I would just put some water in their face, and they would be really happy, because water is something that a lot of kids like playing with. Sometimes when they would be crying, I would just give them something like a plate or something with a little water in there, and they can just splash it around. Sometimes I would just put a little bit of glitter in water, and then watch the glitter sink in and go up and things like that. So messy play is something that is extremely important. Be comfortable with it. At the most, what's going to happen, a few clothes are going to get ruined. um, Maybe you might catch a cold, but just make sure your child doesn't catch a cold, because them falling sick again might lead to a lot of other sensory issues. So just make sure of that, and that's where, I cannot stress the importance of limit setting enough. All right, certain games that you can play, first and foremost, is for communication, feeling word game. So, feeling word game is, you have different pieces of cardboard, and you put different feelings down on them after asking the child if the child is verbal. If the child is not verbal, I'll tell you about that as well. So, you ask a child, what would an 8-year-old boy feel like? And they would say angry. You would put angry down. Put this maybe on the floor, or maybe in a container. And then you would ask, what would an 8-year-old child feel besides angry? They would say sad. Put sad down. Then put all of the feelings down that the child can name. And then ask the child to pick up one card. The child would pick up one card, and it would probably say sad. So then you say, okay, so your name is Nishtha. How would Nishtha feel when they're sad, or what would they do when they're sad? And the child would start talking about it. This is how you teach them about communicating their feelings. If it's a non-verbal child, you can do the same thing, But instead of writing the word and asking the child to describe it, you can write the word and make a smiley face or a color associated with it. So the child is able to relate and maybe at any given point in time, make those facial expressions or maybe bring that card to you, communicating and expressing that this is how I feel like. Pick up sticks game is very similar to the feeling word game, but instead of a card, we have different sticks with a picture of maybe a smiley face, maybe a red angry face, a purple face that maybe shows jealousy, an orange face that shows I'm feeling sick. So you pick up a stick from the floor based on whatever feeling that you're experiencing. And then for communication, you can play with puppets, and puppets are one of the most underrated play therapy tools that we have, especially finger puppets. They're really nice, and you get them very easily on Amazon or any other toy shop. Hand-eye coordination activities will be ball throwing activities, bubble blowing. So a lot of kids get really happy when you blow bubbles for them in their face, and they get to pop it. So that also helps in playing with them, their overall development and hand-eye coordination. Now coming to the children with special needs, what all you can play with them. Aquatic games help with sensory processing and tactile issues. So aquatic games could be fetch the coin. You would have a bucket or maybe a tub, put a coin in, get the child to fetch the coin. So that will also help. Maybe sometimes you're just putting some glitter in the water and you put the child in the glitter, and then later on you're like, okay, so tell me where you see the glitter. So finger pointing will come about with that. Then jumping in deep pressure games to help with hyperactivity only if the child likes it. If there are other sensory issues in the child and the child does not like deep pressure, please do not play this game with the child. Let's not make the child uncomfortable. Then there will be certain tabletop games where you can teach dressing and undressing of the dolls. You use buttons and zippers. You can also take a cardboard and have different colored zippers glued onto them and teach the child how to zip and unzip. It will help with their fine motor skills and also hand-eye coordination and direction sense also. Zipper goes up. When it goes up, it's locked. When it comes down, it's open. Then you do running, jumping, pushing, and throwing games for children who are anxious to develop self-confidence. So running, jumping, pushing, and throwing games are, games that help children release a lot of endorphins, and those endorphins help with anxiety. So running yields a lot of running and jumping are cardio exercises, so they release a lot of serotonin and endorphins. Pushing is when you just stand there like a rock and just be like, push me. If you can push me, I'll consider you as the greatest person in the world. You have the greatest strength in the world. So this is how we'll be playing with the kids with a lot of drama and gestures. And then throwing games. You can just make the kids throw random things in random places. Get them to write their feelings down and throw them away. And then later on, make them find those things that they've been throwing away and just be like, yeah, I am a person who feels all of these things, even though I'm expressing it in the form of throwing, but they're still contained in me. So this will help children develop that self-confidence, communication, and emotional regulation. So PECS is a picture exchange communication for children with autism and other communication related deficits. Flashcards help. Kids have access to flashcards. They'll be able to give you a flashcard and tell you that this is what I want, or maybe they'll be able to finger point and tell this is what I want. Put that maybe on a chart or something. Then there are beat the timer games for impulsivity, and they are the most fun to play with. So beat the timer games are you set a timer and make the child experience the timer first. You get the child to stand straight and just be like, okay, for the next 30 seconds, we'll be doing an activity or we'll be playing a game. I want you to first try and understand what 30 seconds feel like. So you switch on the timer for 30 seconds and then you play a sound, a buzzer at the end of the 30 seconds. So the child knows what 30 seconds feel like. And for impulsivity, you can maybe start a ball throwing game. So be like, just give them a bucket filled with balls and ask the child to throw it in another bucket, or maybe just throw it on the floor without having to look up. So if the child is throwing the balls down, picking up and throwing the balls down, they can't look up. Every time they look up, you make a note. You'll be like one, and then you count two, then you count three. Every time they look up, and give the child the knowledge that in these 30 seconds you looked up 5 times. Now I want in the next 30 seconds you look up. You try your level best to only look up 4 times, and when they do that, reinforce. So what we're trying to work with here is that impulsivity, that difficulty in controlling their behavior and actions. So this really helps children with ADHD who have a combined type or a hyperactivity type diagnosis, helps with children who have anxiety and obsessive compulsive tendencies where their impulsivity is so strong and so dominant that they find it really difficult to control certain actions being either excessive hand washing, looking at the time too much, and things like that. All right, moving on. Body awareness activities, and these are your most of them have come from occupational therapy. So we've tried to integrate sensory integration and occupational therapy in play therapy to be able to create a body awareness. So make a sushi game is you can just be like, I'm going to make you into a sushi today, and see how that feels like. Take a blanket, roll the child, and in front of the mirror, maybe just make them stand instead of doing it on the floor. Go close to the mirror and just be like, this is my human sushi. Do you like this human sushi? Now I'm going to eat this human sushi. So this is what gives the child the body awareness that, listen, my body can be compact in this much, and this is how I need to manipulate my body in order to move around. Tug of war tends to give us a lot of body awareness in terms of how much strength I have, how much competitiveness I can handle, my body can handle, how much anxiety and pressure my body can handle. And then there is a kid sandwich game. This is something that I really enjoy doing in group therapy sessions. Is I take two kids and then I take another kid who makes the middle of the filling of the sandwich, and then the other two kids are the bread. And then I would ask, okay, in this round, who would want to become the bread? The bread will be two kids who will be on the outside, and then the kid on the inside will be the filling. And then just we would be like, okay, so now all three of you stand really close together. We won't force them to stand close to each other. We would just give the instruction. And now you're a kid sandwich. We would click a picture and then we would show it to the kids. So and then we would ask, okay, who would want to become the filling the next time? And this sort of facilitates a body awareness that, listen, I have to be in my own personal space. At the same time, the child gets comfortable with kids their own age or their own developmental or mental level to be around them. So it fosters comfort, and it also gives them a sense of personal space, that this is what is making me uncomfortable. And we would probably see that they would eventually communicate that, listen, I really don't like if you stand too close to me. Or maybe they would just subconsciously take a step back, and they would only be able to do it if they have their own body awareness. Then there is an Are You a Mummy game where we wrap the kids like a mummy with different bandages, or maybe stick different papers on their skin without making it uncomfortable for the child. And then we would ask you, are you a mummy? Are you a mummy? Say yes, say yes, say no, say no. And sometimes you would just hide the child behind the door, and we'll be like, okay, so knock knock, who's this? Mummy. Who's mummy? My mummy. No, no, an Egyptian mummy. So anything around a mummy, you can just build that, maybe build a poem, build a narrative, ask questions and things like that, get them to scare you, you get scared. And that sort of also gives them a body awareness. And there will come a time where they'll be like, this bandage is a little loose that you've put here on my arm. Can you tighten this up? And I really want to become a good mummy. Then there is newspaper or balloon cricket or tennis, however you want to do it. So what we do here is we make newspaper balls and we get the child to hit it with a bat, or we get the child to hit it with a tennis racket or a badminton racket, whatever the child is comfortable with. Or we would have balloons and we would throw the balloon towards the child and the child would have to whack it with a bat. And that sort of gives them the body awareness that what angle I need to hit it at, what speed, what direction, and things like that. Then there is blanket ride, and this is one of my most favorite games to play with kids. So then we would have these blankets that the child would be rolled in for the sensory integration, deep pressure, and occupational therapy. I would take that blanket from the occupational therapist after their session, or maybe ask the parents to bring their own blankets. And the blanket is nothing more like, one of those really thick carpets or a thick bed sheet, and I would put that on the floor and get the child to sit at one end, and with the other end I would just be like, chuk, 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 train, chuk, 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 train. Now we are in a train ride. So it gives the child that body awareness that I don't have to sit like a rock. I have to sit on the blanket in such a way that my therapist can carry me around, and it becomes really fun. We take out different sounds, move around the center or move around the room, show it to the parents, and then the child feels really happy and ecstatic that, I am being carried like a train, but I'm not a train. That's really fun to do in the sessions. Then the emotional regulation, again, we have the feeling word game that we've discussed for communication, pick up sticks, balloon anger game. This is something that works beautifully for children that are 4 or 5 years of age who have anxiety, ADHD, kids who are verbal. It works with them quite well. And with the kids who are non-verbal, you can just demonstrate it so that the child can communicate using the same expressions or using the same gestures. So how do you play this game is you start blowing a balloon. And after you've blown a balloon, you make sure you blow it to the point where it bursts. And then you fill another balloon. So when you do these two things, your instructions are, see, with the first balloon, think of the balloon as your own body, your own mind. And think about the air as the anger. As the anger increases in a person explodes. And that's what happened with the balloon. Now, with the second balloon, we have anger. Now, what are we going to do with this? We are going to slowly release it. And then you release that anger and the air goes out. That's what you teach the child. And for the non-verbal kids, they would probably, try to fill a balloon with air and try to communicate with you that, listen, I'm feeling angry. Then bubble breaths or tummy balloons. This is works really well with children with anxiety, and it works with non-verbal kids as well. And it's something that helps with anger, but it's mostly for anxiety. You put a toy or you put anything on the tummy, and you make the child blow balloons using their tummy. So deep breath, in, hold, exhale. Inhale, hold, exhale. So that's tummy balloons. We can change this and make this into bubble breaths. Is we make the child blow as many bubbles using the bubble maker as possible, the ones where you blow bubbles. And after a certain point, when they get really tired, we get them to make just one bubble and very slowly. So they take that wand, then we make them blow bubbles. They take a deep breath in, and then with exhaling, they try and make the bubble as big as possible. So that with the deep breathing technique gets rid of their anxieties and they're able to cope with it. And they're able to get their body to stay calm after a storm. That really helps. And I've seen a child who's really cute at 4 years of age be like, "Mom, I really am angry. Can I blow bubbles?" So every time the child would get angry, we would sit down and blow bubbles. And when we would blow bubbles, this kid would say, "Mom and Dad, they work so much. I barely get any time. I've been asking them for a younger sister that I can play with, someone who can give me time and play with me. There is nobody in the house who would play with me." And he would just, vent everything out every time he would sit and blow bubbles, because the child told me that he is angry and wants to blow bubbles. He communicated instead of throwing things around, which was a very healthy way, and I reinforced that by doing that activity with him. So that's how we can use this as play therapy. Thank you so much. I hope it wasn't boring. Can we have some questions and I'll do my thank you dance? Yay. All right. We'll take some questions now. If there's
Um,
anything you didn't understand, please feel free to ask me and I'll repeat the concept again. Yes, Harshali ma'am.
yeah, there is one question. Can you please repeat what sushi game is?
Okay, so what sushi game is, you just take the child and you roll them in a blanket. Just be like, okay, now we are going to eat human sushi. And the child will be like, okay, what does that even mean? And then you take the child and you wrap them with their hands tucked in, so that the child has body awareness, and you're wrapping them at the same time you're giving deep pressure to the child, so it'll help them get calm. Okay? And I give them a sense of body awareness. The game seems so interesting while it is taking the child's sensory need also into consideration. We play so many of these games as children without any adult guidance, and it helped. Yes, absolutely. It did help. I remember playing so many games as a child, crocodile and things like that, red letter. And we turned out just fine because of the fact that we had all of these games that were aimed at an overall development of us, rather than rather than with the TV or things like that. So yeah. And yes, somebody did mention burrito roll and sushi roll. It's the same game. It's just called differently. I'd like to know how you incorporate speech goals or cognitive goal, if any, in the therapy. Yes, we do that, but that's a more trained approach. As of right now, I've just given you the very basics that you can just start off at home. Make notes as to what you observe, because as of right now, it will be more free play for you and less of play therapy. And when it comes to speech and cognitive goals, yes, we are trained to do that, and we do that, but that comes after the sixth or the seventh session. When we see and we're able to identify sensory goals and sensory integration starts, that's when we start working on speech and cognitive goals with the speech therapist in mind as well. So we have similar goals. So a very basic thing is that, for example, the speech therapist wants the child to make a certain sound or makes a certain word. So I would put the same word on a card and just ask the child, okay, so let's try to make this like this. So I would maybe put a puppet and put the name of the same word on that puppet. So this is a puppet whose name is this, and we would want to say this, and we want to say this with so much emphasis, and we want to say this with so much sass. And the child would emulate that, because children usually love a lot of drama. So we do that. Please explain PECS for autism. So PECS for autism is basically a picture exchange communication. We have different flashcards. We have different cards of different lengths depending on what how your child responds to. We have a 6-inch by a 4-inch standard card, but a lot of kids respond to, I mean, whatever they are conditioned towards. So all of these cards are usually put either on a chart with a Velcro. So the child can pick it up from the chart and give it to you and communicate with you. If it's I want to go to the washroom, so there's a toilet seat there. And this card could either be any picture that you find on the internet, but you'll have to obviously train and explain it to the child, or it could be pictures of the household items and household actions that the child is already engaging in. A lot of parents, and we suggest that because that works well, is they click pictures of the child doing different activities, and that's what we use as specs cards. uh, a non-verbal 3-year-old doesn't sit in one place. How to start any play with him? You also run around with him, na? Run around with them. Whatever they're doing, do exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. Copy them action for action. Once you have their attention, that's when you start playing with them in a play therapy format, only if you want to. It's a 3-year-old child. I mean, chill, relax, enjoy, play. You just play with your child, and trust me, you'll see a huge difference in your child within 15 to 20 days. Please give ideas of play for a child with APD, auditory processing disorder, who is fully a visual learner. Ari, you can work really well with these kids. So visual learners do action, gestures, and just try and communicate using different pictures, and get them involved. So and just do it based on actions. Just in the beginning, do it randomly and see how the child responds. So whatever you do, see how the child responds. Observe the child. If you're doing something and the child is not interested, change your activity quickly. And try to work as much as possible through actions, through gestures. Keep in mind that they are a visual learner. The more visual stimulation you give this child, the better this child will learn. So instead of giving any instruction written or verbal or visual, try to just say things, do things with interaction and a lot of gestures. Please explain the mummy game. Okay, we tend to wrap children in different bandages. I use crepe bandages or even white gauze bandages. With the COVID, we tend to ask the mothers and the fathers to bring their own bandages. We put them in a box and give them back to them, and we reuse it. So what we do is, with the white gauze bandages, we just put this all over the child's arms, legs, and anywhere where it's possible to put it. And then we just say, okay, so who's a mummy? This person is a mummy. So for example, I'm playing with you, Pooja ma'am. So I would say Pooja is a mummy. I am not a mummy. I am a digger. I will dig the mummy in and out. And then I would probably have a door. I would be on one side of the door and the child would be on the other side. I'd be like, so now knock knock, who's there? It's a mummy. Who's mummy? It's my mummy. No, it's not your mummy. It's a mummy. So things like that. So it creates a body awareness where you have that sense of that pressure on the skin of the gauze, or the bandage, and also at the same time you're keeping a track of what the other person is saying. You're having fun, and at the same time you're building a body awareness. I hope that answers your question. Okay, then we have, how long does the play session last? Me as a therapist, I've 45 minutes is what I can do, because the kids run around quite a lot and I'm also getting old. It completely depends on how much you can do. Do not force yourself, because the kids pick up on your vibe just like that. If you're tired, please take a break. But yes, I tend to keep only 2 or 3 play sessions with children in a day. Rest all, I try to keep them, more behavior therapy based, or more parental coaching based. Can you explain more on neutral language? Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sonali ma'am, for asking this. So neutral language is using basic words to communicate. Come here instead of come here. So come here with this tone will be neutral language. Come here will not be neutral language. Using the word no or don't, they sort of make the aggression go really high. And it's something that brings out the rebellious streak in children. So we tend to avoid the word no and don't. We tend to avoid calling the child names. Tum nalayak ho, you can't do this only. I asked you to do this. How dare you? Why have you made a mess? So avoid all of those languages. And sometimes I feel what helps parents is taking a breath, take a moment before you communicate with your child. Think in your mind, ask yourself that whatever I am saying to my child, in whatever tone that I'm saying it, if my child says the same thing to me in the same tone, will I like it or will I not? And that would give you a very good idea, very accurate idea about what your neutral language is. Please explain bubble breath again. Okay. So this is a little bit of exhausting exercise, or a game for children. We make sure the child is exhausted. So we take the wand and in the soap solution and we make the child blow as many bubbles as possible. Then the child is either bored or it's the child's tired, and then we like, okay, now we're going to change this game. We're going to take a deep breath and we ourselves put the bubble solution on the wand. And okay, take a deep breath in. Now blow one bubble as big as possible. And they would exhale into the wand. And when you do that, sometimes you get a really big bubble. So that's reinforcing for the child themselves. What you're teaching the child is emotional regulation and taking deep breaths every time the child is anxious or agitated. My son is having compulsive behavior of repeating some words. How to reduce that with any game technique? That's echolalia. That's probably echolalia, I think, Tushar sir. And that's something that is a limitation. You can try and work with different gestures and dramatic phrases where you just go all out and dramatically communicate with them and see how they respond. Mostly echolalia starts increasing when the child gets really anxious and stressed. So try keeping those things in mind. Teach the child regulation, emotional regulation and communication using maybe the bubble breath technique, the tummy balloon technique, or maybe just the word game technique or the pick up sticks technique. Just get them to express themselves to the best of their ability. And I've seen that echolalia tends to reduce if the child is not stressed out as much. Explain feeling word game. So we put different words on cards. If the child is verbal, we ask them the feeling words themselves. So what would an 8-year-old boy feel like? So they would say angry, and maybe 10, 12 different things. And then I would ask them, we would put them down in a container or maybe on the floor, and we would just randomly get the child to pick up one card. Okay, so what does Ram feel when they're angry? How does that happen? Any other incident that happened recently that made Ram feel angry? What does Ram look like when Ram is angry? When we get the child to express and communicate all of these things, the arousal level, the emotional level of the child goes down. The child gets desensitized towards that uncomfortable feeling that comes about with emotions. Can you please expedite more on games for children seeking jumping and deep pressure? Explain more on kids seeking jumping and deep pressure. Join them and slowly and steadily start changing a little bit. So if they're just constantly jumping and seeking deep pressure, give them a play time in which they're only jumping and seeking deep pressure, and do it to the extreme, so that the child is so tired and exhausted, and see how the rest of the day of the child unfolds. Just whatever sensation they're asking for, give it. It's a sensory need. They're not doing it deliberately. They actually need that amount of stimulation. And unless the child gets that amount of stimulation, it will be very difficult for us to work on communication, emotional regulation, or anything else, even cognitive goals. It becomes really difficult if the child's needs are not fulfilled. Ma'am, how do you play with puppets? Depends on what puppets you have. You can make sock puppets, you can make finger puppets. N number of videos on DIY puppets are available on YouTube. And you just put them on fingers. I have a kid whom I've, taught how to greet. Hello, little child, how are you? So there would be this particular finger puppet, and I would put the old man here. So the old man asks, hello, little child, how are you? The child would say, I am very well. How are you, old man? So the old man would say, I am doing well. What are you doing here? So you can use all of those things to facilitate communication. If you remember, we were talking about those two-way communication that you would prompt a child to do. You can use that using puppet also. So you can either prompt or just play with the child using that puppet, and it's a lot of fun when that happens. Ma'am, are you available for carrying therapy in other parts of the country? For instance, I'm in Bangalore. I can very well train you to do that online, and you can do it for your child. We can do it where I instruct you here, and you can execute it with your child in your house. So yes, I am available to do it remotely as well. Very insightful session. Thank you, Nishta ma'am. Thank you, Papna ma'am. Ma'am, can you please explain some games for transition of a rigid children who wants to play with the same toy even during sleep timings? Ma'am, during sleep time, the child doesn't get any toys. That's where a little bit of the conditioning is going wrong, wherein in during the sleep time, after the child changes their clothes and brushes their teeth, no toy should be in the child's access. This is where us as parents and us as therapists, we need to be very careful and very vigilant that the time is there is a designated time for everything for the child. We cannot give the child free play for 24 hours a day. No, not possible, because that will compromise on their development. So this is where I talked about limit setting. We first need to set limits for the child. We need to communicate and condition the child towards these limits. And even if the child is playing with the same toy, maybe try and enter the child's world, and you also mimic that you want to play with the same toy only and you don't want to share. Not the same toy that the child is playing with. The same toy that you want to play with day after day, and see how your child responds to that. A lot of times when you take away that toy for a brief period of time, see how that happens, how that goes about. A lot of times kids get irritated in the beginning and then they forget. I am using these techniques in the last 3 years now. I want my child to imitate me. How can we get your child to imitate us? Avneet ma'am, what is your child's diagnosis? If you're using these techniques from the last 3 years, you should be able to get your child to imitate. So something or the other is going wrong. If you can unmute yourself and we can have a little bit of discussion on this, maybe I'll be able to pinpoint what we are doing wrong here.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, ma'am. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine. It's been I've like seeing your session and listening to what you're saying, and I've been doing all of these like just the same. I know my child is really hyperactive. He's on the go from day to night, and I don't give him access to these toys after the night time after he changes. Like I'm doing all these things, but still he is not getting to that level where he should be now. He is now 5.6 years old.
Okay.
He was diagnosed when he was 2.2.
What's the diagnosis?
Last year he was diagnosed with fragile legs as I had conceived. So I wanted the diagnosis to be genetically tested as well. So now I have a newborn baby as well of 2 months. And the anxiety that he's been having, he's every time there's a time that he goes back. There's a regression.
Is he falling sick and then that's when the regression is happening?
Yes.
That's something that's very common with Fragile X and autism spectrum disorder. In this case, is there only one diagnosis, only Fragile X, or is there another diagnosis as well?
No, he was diagnosed ASD when he was 2.2.
What intensity of ASD? Mild,
Moderate.
moderate, severe, moderate.
Mod-
Okay.
Moderate.
Is the child undergoing occupational therapy right
Every day.
now? You need to up that. So take a home plan from the occupational therapist. If the child is going to the occupational therapist every day, you need to do the remaining, the second time occupational therapy for the child.
I'm doing that as well.
And that's not helping with the hyperactivity.
Some days it helps, some days it doesn't. And now because of the newborn, I'm not getting the time to, giving him the time. So he's feeling a little bit jealous and lonely, left alone. So there's a lot of sleep issues also coming along.
Have you considered medication?
I have considered medication, but it's like when you don't get the medication on time and there's a gap in that, then it's just a complete disaster type of thing. Because it's been like from last month, I didn't get his medicines because of the COVID situation. And now his sleep has become something it's the time.
Okay. Ma'am, sometimes medication tends to help because what happens is when we give the child medication and enough therapy and stimulation, at about 11, 12 years of age, when they're pre-puberty and when puberty just hits, that's when the brain channels tend to reset. And that's when a lot of developmental issues and difficulties, they tend to get resolved. And I understand that it's a long battle, and then again, a lot of kids show that with the right medication and the right stimulation, that that plateau in their hyperactivity comes about. It is a long journey. We can only achieve so much with therapy, considering that there is Fragile X, and with Fragile X there are a lot of other issues that are already there in the body. So I'm not really very sure whether without medication we will be able to do this, but imitation is something that you can try doing, in terms of just join the child in doing whatever that you can whenever you can. So for example, right now you're taking this webinar, your child might be doing something, you start imitating the child. Don't expect that your child will imitate you. You imitate the child as much as possible. Once the child has your attention and you have the child's attention, and you'll be able to get that understanding that yes, now my child is looking at me, seeing whether I'm imitating them or not. That's when you start doing something and see if your child imitates you or not. Because with ASD, there is a huge impairment in the brain wherein the mirror neurons are not activated. They're sleeping, they're dormant. And mirror neurons are those neurons that help us imitate and help us gain knowledge and mastery of the surrounding world by putting the same mirror images, making the same mirror images in our head. So they are affected. The more occupational therapy you do, the better it becomes. The more general body awareness stimulation you do, the better it becomes. The more attention related work that you do, it becomes better. So try doing this. If it doesn't help, contact me. I'll tell you more things.
Okay. For sure, I'll contact you. Thank you so much for your time. It was a very insightful session.
Thank
I
you so much.
really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, next one. My child mimics actions from smaller kids and adults as it is without thinking much. He is now 7 years old. How to improve his logical skills? Communicate, talk, give him problems to solve. So get him to do an obstacle course in playing. Get him to solve, comprehend issues. Give him puzzle games to play. See how the child responds. If not, give the child, find this particular toy from a bunch of toys. Those kind of tasks that involve problem solving, comprehension of instruction. do them with your child. It'll help. Also, I hope when you're doing these activities, it's a 7-year-old kid, they have a decent attention span, 15-20 minutes. If they're able to have that attention span, go ahead with your logical skills work. Thank you so much, Hema ma'am. Thank you, Neha ma'am. Sometimes child doesn't like messy play, so how do we start? If the child doesn't like messy play, then your best bet is to start mimicking the child. Make the child comfortable, reinforce the child to the best of your ability. um, just join the child in doing whatever they're trying to do. And if they don't like messy play, bring this to your occupational therapist's notice. Maybe there's something else going on. Maybe there's a tactile or a textural sensory issue that's there. Kid with CP who sits partially independently, how to engage them with play therapy and behavior modification for hyperactivity. Hyperactivity is again, you can do a lot of body awareness work with them and restlessness work with them for the internal hyperactivity. Try the blowing bubbles, the bubble breath, sorry, bubble breath, blowing bubbles. Get them to follow a laser pointer, get them to follow a toy. For the hyperactivity, you can also do the timer related games. I remember we guys used to play ice and water. Try doing that with the child. I understand that there is a limited movement with the cerebral palsy, so you can just with the hyperactivity, maybe just do ice and water with different body parts. Ice, water. So things like that. Do more body awareness games with the cerebral palsy. Thank you, Prabhavati ma'am. Thank you, Sonali ma'am. Lovely compliments. Sita ma'am, who has to clean up after the messy play, we or the child? In the beginning, you do. Then, after a few trials, get the child involved also. And then later on, I'm assuming that the child will pick up the habit and do the cleaning themselves. You can also, have do that in a parallel play format where you do your cleaning and they do theirs. When the child is screaming continuously, not listen at all, which play therapy works fast? No, when the child is screaming, nothing doing. Let the child scream, it's a timeout time. Nothing doing. If the child is screaming and you're playing with the child or getting the child to give you attention or giving the child the attention, you are reinforcing screaming. Nothing doing. Timeout. You get out of the situation, nothing doing at that point. I'm not audible. Okay, this was a few minutes ago. I hope I'm audible now.
Yes, you are audible.
All right, thank you. Okay, what can we do for a child who is obsessed with playing with his saliva? Bring this to your occupational therapist notice. This is a sensory related issue. There is something going on in the brain that needs to be addressed right now. Thank you, Pooja ma'am, for the compliment. How do we explain social verbal 8-year-old to follow rules of game when playing with his peers? 8-year-old to follow rules when they're playing with the peers. 8-year-old. What diagnosis? 8 years old they're usually able to play with kids and follow the rules of the game. Maybe simplify the rules. Maybe just have one rule that they have to follow and then take it forward. But yeah, if the child is non-verbal, then this again becomes very difficult. Are the peers sensitized towards the child and the child's difficulties? Because that's something that is the first and foremost thing. You need to sensitize the kids that are around, that play with your children. Thank you, Meena ma'am, for wonderful words. Thank you, Daya ma'am.
Excuse me, can I ask you a question?
Yes, absolutely, sure.
Yeah, I was the one who had asked about the saliva issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my son, he's currently 6 years old. Of late, he is, constantly putting saliva everywhere and moving his finger across. So now I mean, I have tried distracting him from doing it, giving him something else to do, or telling him, no, no, stop, stop. Now he reacts when I say stop. He'll stop it for like maybe 30 seconds and then he'll start again. So I was also told that I should not tell him to stop.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah.
I mean, I don't know what else to do because it is distracting him from focusing on anything else, any other activity. 5 minutes if we leave him unattended, he's constantly playing with the saliva. So any suggestions?
Bring it to your occupational therapist notice. They will handle it. A lot of kids do that. It takes about 3 or 4 weeks of intense occupational therapy, where they do a lot of oromotor related work, and they do a lot of visual and tactile work, and this slowly goes away because it's, if you actually look at it, there are three senses involved. One is the mouth, then there is the vision when the child is actually looking at the movement happening, and then there is touch where the child is actually playing with the saliva. So all three senses, they need to be integrated for the child to feel comfortable in their own body. So bring it to your occupational therapist's notice, and it should help. If the child won't wear, एक second, मैम बच्चे की speech clarity में क्या, uh, Realme 7, I don't understand your question, sorry. Just breathe, ma'am. Ma'am, if a child won't wear weighted wristbands, can we use something else? Ask your occupational therapist. This is not my area, and I don't want to advise something that I am not very well versed with. Sorry. How this impairment bridge can be narrowed: imitation and imagination. Play, 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 play. Play as much as you can. Do a lot of free play with your child. Get the child to explore the world, get the child to observe the world. And for something like that, you need to make sure that the child is paying attention enough. And that can only happen if the child's body is stable. My daughter has sleep issues. She sleeps very late in the night, only when all family sleeps. She so slowly sets into sleep. Can any therapy be done for this, ma'am? I'm not really very sure if therapy is going to help, but her habit changing will help. So make sure that after 6 o'clock, the child is not consuming any sugar, any Bonvita, or any drink that will increase the hyperactivity or the restlessness. Secondly, if there's any sugar intake, make sure you're exhausting the child. Make them do as much as physical activity as possible. Thirdly, have a nighttime routine where she is going to bed, and make sure there is no stimulation around, no lights in the house, in the room, sorry, when she is going to bed, and she's not allowed to get out of the bed until she falls asleep. And whosoever is tucking them in bed needs to condition the child that, listen, now it's time to sleep. We will be sleeping, and that's it. No other stimulation at this point in time. Thank you, Ronika ma'am. Is there any age limit for play therapy? I've done it with 75-year-olds as well, so no age limit. There are books with geriatric population giving play therapy pretty well. Thank you so much, Daya ma'am. Thank you, Manisha ma'am. मैम मेरा बेटा टॉयज से नहीं खेलता, वो किसी भी चीज को लेकर उससे किसी भी चीज से हिट करने लग जाता है, वो टॉयज को माउथ में डाल लेता है, व्हाट कैन आई डू? अगर टॉयज को मुंह में डाल लेता है बच्चा, तो फिर कुछ ओरोमोटर प्रॉब्लम है, ऑक्यूपेशनल थेरेपिस्ट से बात करो, ओरोमोटर मसाजेस चलेंगी, स्पीच थेरेपिस्ट से बात करो, ओरोमोटर काम चलेगा, यहाँ पे काम चलेगा बच्चे के। दूसरी चीज, क्या आपका बच्चा अभी भी बॉटल से दूध पीता है? अगर बॉटल से दूध पीता है तो अभी फेंक दो, क्योंकि ये बहुत कॉमन है, जो बच्चे बॉटल से दूध पीते हैं वो हर चीज मुंह में डालते हैं, बहुत प्रिमिटिव वे ऑफ फंक्शनिंग है। 2.5-year-old kid has to walking most of the times when walking, so can I continue and of forcing their foot, touch, pinching, or other. No, 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 no. Toe walking is something where you have to work on the balance and the vestibular issues with the child. Occupational therapy is the only answer. You need to give the child enough balance for them to be to stop their toe walking. Another thing that works for toe walking is you. How do I explain this? You make the child sit sit on their feet with their bum touching their you know kind of make them sit like you would make them a murga jab murga banate hain to get them to sit like that on the floor with their knees together, and you put a little bit of your weight on the child. When you do that, that's when the child gets that sense of weight and that body awareness, and develops that sense of balance also. So no suppressing it, no saying no, no pinching, no, we don't do punishment in child development at all. Like once a blue moon, you're in a bad mood, you're frustrated, you've had a horrible week, if you tend to slip up, that's still acceptable, but no pinching, and no forcing the child. No, not at all acceptable. Ma'am, my son is 10 years old and he is obsessed with rickshaw, bike, and lift. Please help how to handle it. What about it is the obsession that the child has? I am assuming it's movement. Movement is proprioceptive sense. Bring it to your occupational therapist. Notice your child should be able to benefit from that. It was a great session. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Can you recommend an OT who can help us with the home program, please? Yes, Bhavna ma'am, I can recommend an occupational therapist. Please contact me. I'm there with the in the Telegram group and in the WhatsApp group. I will take it further. Thank you so much, Roshni ma'am. Thank you, Manisha ma'am. Thank you, Ganesh sir. How to improve IQ level of 7-year-old son? My child is diagnosed with mild ADHD and her IQ is 70. Preeti ma'am, contact me on personal window. We'll come up with a home plan and we'll work. It's not related to play therapy, so I'll answer the question, and then we'll start working because it's a huge process. IQ is 70, mild ADHD and IQ is 70. Oh, okay. You just contact me because I think there's something. Uh, Something doesn't add up there. Uh, Madhu ma'am, my child cries a lot and his ears get so red. Madhu ma'am, can you unmute yourself, please? Because I think I would need more information about this question.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, ma'am. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Actually,
Yes,
ma'am,
ma'am.
sorry. If you want to say something, I'm interrupting you.
No. It's completely okay. Yes, I was just about to say yes. Please tell me.
Actually, ma'am, he's 4.5 now, and he's very very cranky sometimes. Especially, I think in the evening time, he keep on crying, and his ear gets so red, like not even red, it's like maroon color, both of the ears, and I don't know why it's happening. It's happening many times during the month, and since 2 weeks, he's too very cranky. He's keep on crying most of the time. He's crying.
Okay, so he's 4.5 years old.
Yes, ma'am.
List down all the activities that you're doing with the child in the evening. Something or the other is not okay with him. There's some discomfort that's happening, or maybe just the lack of light is making them cranky. So try and have as much bright lights as possible, or if there's any other sensory or temperature related problem, if you're changing their clothes in the evening, maybe the clothes that the child is wearing, they're uncomfortable with it. There is something in the external environment that the child is responding to. Please identify it and change it. Are you doing something that's making the child uncomfortable? Changing their clothes, bathing them, brushing their hair, maybe some sound comes in the evening, some neighbor who comes, maybe some
I
bell.
can't actually figure out. Our environment is the same in the house, and I don't know what's happening with him. I can't figure out actually.
Is the child verbal?
Not. It's few words. Just sometimes say water, sometimes say biscuit. Very few words. But he repeat all the rhyme, but not talking. Communication is there.
Is the child taking therapy?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, I'm in England. So I'm not having anything because of lockdown. So he's under the referral of OT therapy, but we are under Action for Autism. They are
Okay.
giving me therapies on Zoom, and I'm trying with him.
Okay.
And they're doing some activities also.
Okay.
Sometimes he's cranky and don't want to do it. Most of the time, he doesn't want to do the activities. He doesn't want to sit on the chair. Now a little bit he has changed, but
Okay.
most of the time he is not aware of. I don't want to do that.
How much is the child sleeping?
Sorry, ma'am.
How long is the child sleeping at night?
His sleep is very disturbed since he's born.
Child is
Very disturbed,
cranky because of lack of sleep.
maybe. Now we tried melatonin with him. I request the doctor to give because he was sleeping at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Is
So we
melatonin
give him
helping?
melatonin at 10 o'clock, and he gets up 3 o'clock in the morning. His sleep is very disturbed.
Is the child hyperactive or inactive?
No, he's a mix. He's not hyperactive. Sometimes he jumps. Sometimes he likes to sit and walk. He rock. Then he sometimes he lay down on the floor. He's in between.
Okay. Do more of physical play activities, maybe jumping, throwing, catching, and things like that. Whatever the child is comfortable with and the child's developmental level. Maybe introduce a half an hour nap in the afternoon if it's possible. Nothing more than half an hour.
Okay.
Nothing more than half an hour. See how that goes like. Or maybe what you can try is a deep pressure activity somewhere in the afternoon or somewhere in the evening where you feel that he's getting cranky. Anything that helps him calm down. So maybe a deep pressure activity, bubble blowing activity, or just following the laser pointer in a dark room, something of that sort. Any activity that brings him calm and calms down his restlessness and irritation. Try figuring it out.
Yes, ma'am, we will try. Actually, ma'am, I have just one. He doesn't want to. He doesn't have interest in any play. If I blow bubble, once in 10, 15 times, once one bubble he can touch and all. Otherwise, he's in own himself, in own world. He's playing.
What is he doing? If he's playing in his own world, what is he doing?
He just pick up one paper, keep on tearing the paper and make long strings, and just paper in his hand and keep on rolling them, and get a string like thread and keep on rolling them. These are his
You do the
activities.
same thing. Do the same thing.
Okay,
Do
ma'am.
the same thing for 3-4 weeks, and then try and introduce toys by playing with the toys yourself. See how the child responds.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for your valuable opinion.
Thank you. Play some share videos. Manisha ma'am, due to confidentiality, I will not be able to share some videos. If you actually put it on YouTube, you will be able to find a lot of videos that are free for everyone to see. Imaginary play with zero imaginary play. Recommend 1 or 2 good books. Play therapy techniques. They will always give you what play you can do with the child. Learning play therapy is a course. You'll have to learn. It's a training course. Books can tell you a lot of things, but they will not teach you. Play therapy is learning based on experience. So there is one very good book, Play Therapy by Virginia Axline. That's the holy grail of play therapy. If you want to go through it, you can. It's a little dry book. There is play therapy and psychotherapy for children. There are a lot of books out there, but they don't teach you how to execute play therapy. They give you brief principles. How to start imaginary play. Just first start playing with your child. Slowly and steadily introduce different elements, and once you can just try introducing an imaginary element by maybe feeding the bear. This is the bear's name, this is what the bear is eating, and see how your child responds. Okay, 11 minutes to 8 o'clock, and we will wrap up then.
I think you can just take questions related to our topic, because everybody going into occupational therapy and all. So
I'll keep that in mind.
yeah.
My son plays with spit. Huh. Yeah. The playing with spit, please bring that under the occupational therapist. Play, oh, oh, oh. Play suggestions for older teens. Check with them what they like. If they like indoor games, start with indoor games. If they like outdoor games, start with outdoor games. Again, I keep on insisting, and I cannot, insist this enough times, is wherever your child is comfortable with, that's where you should be starting from. Start from there. See what your child likes, what your child dislikes. Hemlata ma'am, that's a behavior problem. Please contact me on personal window. It's not related to play therapy. I'll help. How can we improve speech? Realme 7i, speech therapy. Do speech therapy with your child. Choose on short collar. Okay, Pavna ma'am, occupational therapy is your answer. Chewing is again oromotor, occupational therapy. Natrajan sir, 13-year-old child addicted to online games. Again, this is not related to play therapy. Text me. I have written a research paper on gaming addiction. I will be able to help. This child might need more than just play therapy. Psychotherapy will be needed. Which games do you suggest for a child of 5.3 years old with mild ASD? Try all of the ones that I have suggested, and see how your child responds. See, with play therapy, it is in the beginning, it's more exploration, it's more trial and error. We start with toys, we look at what the child is doing. If they're, banging things and listening to it, that's what we also do. If they're looking at fidgeting things, that's what we do. And that's where we start from. So specific games, try the ones that I have given in my presentation for so long. For 5.3, kids are able to comprehend all the instructions, and plus it's mild ASD. So yeah. My son starts crying for chalo when it's activity time. Use a different way. The thing in the child's mind is chalo is associated with something negative, something the child doesn't enjoy. Maybe you say chalo for studying also. Change the conditioning for playtime and work or academics. Sushma ma'am. Utkarsh sir, excessive crying can be cause of gut issues also. Yes. If we stop immediately, he plays very nicely. I don't follow Sushma ma'am. Head banging, occupational therapy. Thank you so much for blessing us. There's a number 896 98290920. Thank you. Monica ma'am, I don't know what you're wanting to stop. It's gotten up. Head banging, I think. Head banging, occupational therapy. How to encourage play between 10-year-old with ASD and 2-year-old neurotypical sibling. Put them in a room together, see what happens. The neurotypical sibling is just 2 years old. How much are they able to comprehend? I'm doubtful. So maybe wait another 1.5 year for the sibling, for them to be able to comprehend what's happening. था ma'am. Where can I find your number? I will just put it here. Psychological support does not involve with other children in play with me as well. Group therapy sensitize the children around and then start group therapy related work. All right. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I think we're done. Any other question? I'll take one last question. Play therapy related question only. Play work, play therapy related question. One last question.
हेलो मैम।
Hello.
हाँ जी मैम, एक्चुअली मैम मैंने ही अभी क्वेश्चन पूछा था जो आपने ग्रुप थेरेपी वाला आंसर दिया है।
जी
मैम एक्चुअली क्या है, माय चाइल्ड इज 8 ईयर ओल्ड।
Okay.
जैसे मैम हाइड एंड सीक या बैट बॉल या कुछ भी हम उसके साथ खेलते हैं, पहले वो इंस्ट्रक्शन बेस ही था सारा गेम, लेकिन
Excuse me,
अब
sorry.
मैम पहले वो इंस्ट्रक्शन बेस ही था सब कुछ, लेकिन अब वो उसमें सस्टेन करता है और मतलब अच्छा फील भी करता है, बट
जी।
ज्यादा सस्टेन नहीं करता। 15 से 20 मिनट में उसको बोरियत होने लगती है। बट
How
मैम
old is the child?
8 years old।
15 से 20 मिनट मैम कॉन्सेंट्रेटेड प्ले कर रहा है 8 साल का बच्चा, सफिशिएंट है।
नहीं मैम, एक्चुअली प्रॉब्लम ये होती है कि वही गेम, मान लीजिए बैट बॉल ही हम उसको किसी बच्चे के साथ खिलाते हैं पार्क में या कहीं भी, तो मैम थोड़ा सा उसको होता है, 1-2 बार करेगा और उसके बाद भागने लगेगा या फिर इंटरेस्टेड नहीं दिखेगा।
दो चीजें हैं, कंडीशन करके लेके जाते हो, बता के लेके जाते हो कि अब हम इतनी देर खेलने जाएंगे, किसी और बच्चे के साथ खेलेंगे।
मैम ये थोड़ा तो बताते ही हैं कि हाँ पार्क जा रहे हैं,
थोड़ा नहीं बताना, पूरा कंडीशन करना है। फॉर एग्जाम्पल
जी।
6 बजे शाम को जा रहे हैं हम पार्क में खेलने के लिए, सुबह उठते से ही कंडीशन करनी शुरू कर दोगे कि हम ऐसे ऐसे करके जाएंगे, इतनी बार खेलेंगे, ऐसे करेंगे, वैसे करेंगे, वैसे करेंगे। और जो भी आप कंडीशनिंग करोगे इट विल बी द सेम डायलॉग थ्रू आउट द डे। 10, 15, 20 बार रिपीट करना पड़ेगा आपको। वहां जाके जब बच्चा 2 मिनट भी खेलता है उसे आप रीइंफोर्स कर रहे हो कि वेरी गुड 2 मिनट।
हाँ जी मैम।
उसके बाद एक कंडीशन अप्लाई लगाना है, नेक्स्ट टाइम थोड़ा और खेलेंगे और बहुत ज्यादा मजा आएगा। एक एंटिसिपेटरी एक्साइटमेंट क्रिएट करो बच्चे के माइंड में।
नहीं एक्चुअली मैम कहीं ना कहीं मुझे ये लगता है कि उसे एक मतलब एज ए एडल्ट मतलब एक हमारे माइंड में है ही कि इससे बात करते वक्त कुछ स्पेसिफिक चीजें याद रखनी है, और जब कोई बच्चा उससे बात करता है तो मैम वो तो अपनी उसकी वॉइस है, वो उसका ध्यान नहीं लेगा, उसने सुना या नहीं सुना उसकी इतनी परवाह नहीं करेगा, तो मैम वो चीजें कहीं ना कहीं मुझे लगता है कि बीच में आ जाती हैं।
हम द होल पॉइंट इज कि हम बच्चे को इंडिपेंडेंट बना रहे हैं। हम बच्चे को चाहते हैं कि वो सोशल वर्ल्ड में जाए, अपने एक्सपीरियंसेस गेज करे, समझे और वहां पे अडेप्ट करे। हर जगह अगर हम उन्हें प्रोटेक्टिव एनवायरनमेंट देंगे, बच्चा इंडिपेंडेंट नहीं होगा, बच्चे का बढ़ेगा नहीं।
जी मैम।
वो एक चीज है जो आप कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकते, बट आपके बच्चे को उस चीज को ऑब्जर्व करना है, अंडरस्टैंड करना और उस पर रिस्पॉन्ड करना है। तो आप स्टार्टिंग में बच्चों को, दूसरे बच्चों को सेंसिटाइज कर सकते हो कि इस बच्चे को थोड़ा सा टाइम लगता है ओपन अप होने में, या फिर वो ज्यादा जल्दी नहीं खेल पाता है, इट्स ओके, कोई बात नहीं, धीरे धीरे करके जब वो कंफर्टेबल हो जाएगा तो वो खेल लेगा आपके साथ जैसे आप चाहते हो। अभी थोड़ा हम उसके हिसाब से करते हैं, एंड स्लोली एंड स्टेडीली जब बच्चा जाता है ग्रुप में खेलने के लिए इट बिकम्स बेटर। थोड़ी सी पेशेंस की जरूरत होती है, और हर जगह हर चीज में बच्चे को हम प्रोटेक्ट नहीं कर सकते और करना भी सही नहीं है। हम उन्हें उड़ने के लिए तैयार कर रहे हैं। अगर हम उनको हर टाइम हम ही सहारा देना शुरू कर देंगे तो बच्चे उड़ थोड़ी ना पाएंगे। उड़ाना है ना बच्चों को,
ठीक है,
तो हर जगह प्रोटेक्शन नहीं देनी। ठीक है,
ठीक है, थैंक यू।
Most welcome. Okay, thank you for being a lovely audience. Okay, if there are any other questions, WhatsApp wala number is there. I'm also there in the psychological support group. Harshali ma'am has put that WhatsApp link in the chat box. It was a wonderful interactive experience. I had a really good time. If there's any feedback that you have, if you want some things done differently with me, for me, by me, please let me know. I will incorporate the feedback in the next webinar, and I hope I've been able to answer all of the questions to the best of my ability. Thank you so much, Harshali ma'am.
Wonderful session, and I must appreciate
Thank you.
I mean, you are answering one by one to everyone. I think everyone is satisfied. I mean, satisfied
Thank you.
with all your questions, and
I was a little guilty about last week because unexpectedly I had something come up. Otherwise, I would have answered every question.
yeah, that is a very nice and most awaited and session and very helpful session we had. Okay, and thank you so much, parents, for attending this. I hope this is, and we'll, I think, take a leave. Yeah, thank you so much, Nishtha ma'am.
Thank you so much, Harshali ma'am, for having me. Thank you, parents. Lovely audience. I really enjoyed today, and today is something that I am extremely passionate about. You could probably see the happiness on my face. I'm always gleaming when there's a play therapy session. So yeah,
That's
it's a
nice.
wonderful thing to do with your children. Please start tomorrow. I won't say today because it's 8 o'clock already. Start from tomorrow, and it's okay. You can make as many mistakes as you possibly can. Play therapy is very forgiving.
And that creates a good bond in between child and parents.
Yeah,
Actually,
absolutely, absolutely.
that is the most important in development of any child.
Yeah.
So
So please try it.
yeah. Okay then. Bye bye. Good night.
Bye. Good night. Thank you. Have a lovely weekend. Bye bye.
Bye.